And we're back. How was that? Instant pause, instant return. Nobody even
Yeah.
noticed.
I feel like there was some time travel stuff you just did right there.
Yes. And now we're back. Now I'm not as disheveled because
Yeah.
why can't you hear me?
Well, I can't see you, Chris. I thought that was weird, but I wasn't going to say anything. Can't hear
Well,
Brad. Can't see Chris. It's the
can you
Steph
hear me?
show. I can.
Can you hear me? This is, I don't even know what we're doing here with this live stuff, but
We're
winging
trialing
it
and
with
error.
Steph, as we call it. No, it's good. We're trying to practice with this live stuff. We did it once before. It didn't go as well because of the internet connectivity. But today we just decided to do a trial run number 2 with you. And,
Yes.
you know, and with our regular episode of Winging It with Steph now, we have to come up with a nice schedule to
I
have
would
you on
love
here. We'll
that.
have the,
Yeah,
yes, I'm recording right now. Where have you been?
I know. Where have you been? Oh, that's. Can you hear me though, Chris? Oh, so this whole time you just can't hear Brad, but you can hear me talking to Brad?
This is great. See, this is Steph. This is why you have to do this live stuff
Yeah.
because you get to work out all the little issues. And Chris, I don't even know.
Well, I always tell
So
people that it's like some Jerry Seinfeld. Or not Jerry Seinfeld, Springer.
Jerry
Jerry
Springer,
Springer.
Jerry Springer. That was such a great show when I was a young boy.
Really? I mean, that
So
was
what do you
probably
always tell people?
not appropriate for young boy viewing. Jerry
Well, I
Springer or
think I
Jerry
was in
Seinfeld?
high school or college. Jerry Seinfeld. I never really got into the Seinfeld show.
Me
I mean, I
neither.
did watch it here and there, but I was not hooked on it.
Exact same.
Jerry Springer, I got into. So
That is
is Chris
hilarious.
is Chris coming back?
He said he's coming back. He's going to jump off and come back on.
Okay.
So
See,
we can stop
he did this
time. We
on
can lose
purpose.
people. We can gain people. This is pretty impressive.
No, it's good. So let's keep going with the conversation that we had. What you were talking about now with the questions of how was your day. So we ended up on that. Let's get back on track.
Yeah, it's okay. I'll bring that back up. It's just funny because I have a beautiful person in my life, and we are probably 30. Wait, should not age her that much. We're probably 25 years apart in age.
Chris is coming back.
Oh, is he trying to get in?
Yeah,
Welcome.
did you hear the door knock?
I
Had
did.
to walk over and get him.
Oh,
There you go. Welcome back, Chris. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Can you see me?
I can see you. I can hear you.
Are
All
you on a
good
better
now.
internet connection now? It looks like you have a better upload rate, so you're okay.
yeah.
You know, man, I got to tell you, I've been using Mac Mini, and there's issues with Mac Mini Wi-Fi. So I just pulled up my MacBook and just joined there, and no issues
No,
with Wi-Fi.
perfect.
Yeah.
Your picture's
So,
way
Steph,
better
continue
too.
with your story. You have a good friend who's 35 years age difference.
25. Let's not age her.
Younger or
25.
lower? Oh, 25. Younger or lower?
Older.
I hope she's older.
Older than me.
Okay. I
Yeah.
was going to say, if you're hanging out with somebody 25 years younger than you, I don't think they graduated preschool yet.
Yeah, that'd be babysitting at that point. No, so
Well,
she is,
yeah.
which is fine. So yeah, we just have this beautiful relationship we've had for 6-7 years, and she's one of those friends who just comes in and out very serendipitously. She's got amazing intuition, and she happened to call me today, and I didn't, as any business. Well, just as me, I was like too busy in my mind, but I always take her call. She's just one of those people, and we just roll right into the real. Like there's no, oh, how are you? Like there's no what we call weather talk. It just rolled right
I
into.
can't stand the small talk.
It's not that I can't stand it. I just really appreciate the real.
Yes.
And there's this song in my head, and I can't remember the artist's name, but the song is called Honest, and
Sing
she
it.
says you don't want that. But in the chorus,
I want to hear a little.
I'm going to speak.
Come on,
the
give me a
word.
little chorus.
and you can
No,
YouTube
no,
for
give me a
the
little chorus.
full thing. So the chorus is if I'm being honest, I'm not being honest. And it's just like, people always say, oh, oh gosh, if I'm being honest, like it's been a bad day. But most of the, she's saying, I'm not being honest. I'm telling you things are good. I'm saying I'm having a great day. I'm saying, oh, it was conference week, but I'm not going to the deep stuff. I'm not being honest. That's what most of us kind of answer with that. How are you? So it's just a really interesting thing that we,
People that people ask me that, I always typically my response is going to be, "Do you want me to lie or tell you the truth?"
yeah,
Mm.
Because I also believe that sometimes the small talk, there is a point, time and place, not point, time and place for the small talk, but and sometimes there's a reason why you called me. There's a reason why we're speaking. You can just say hi, how are you? Maybe it's just a cordial thing, but it's just like, okay,
right.
let's talk about winging it with Steph, which we now signed up for. You have to come up with topics. We're going to do it once a quarter.
Oh,
I'm just
yes.
on a roll today with all these conversations that I'm having.
I like
So
it.
we'll do it quarterly. Put that on my list
I
here.
like it. Yeah, it's you're right though about the cordialness of it. That sometimes it is just a matter of like, being polite. But I think that's almost what got us into the problem of being too surface level.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so superficial. And some of it is, do you really even care how I'm doing? Like, you called me because you want to talk to me about, you owe me money or you need my help or this or that. Do you really care how I'm doing? You
Right.
may, but in general, I'm saying sometimes I'm more interested in the conversation, and we're just trained to know that you need to make someone feel like you care or you're interested, so you have to ask them
The
all these
icebreaker.
questions.
Yeah. Chris and
I think the icebreaker should be something else, like,
but I
oh,
think
you have something on your nose.
when you really don't. They're going to go around the rest of the time like this. Chris and I have done many icebreakers in our day. We served on a leadership board together, and we
Yeah.
led the culture of an entire company, and we've looked up many icebreakers in our day.
I had a good time at that time, Steph. I think when we were on that same, working for that company, I had a good time. It was really good. I think we made a lot of change in the culture, and for a long time, it was really, really good. And I think, you can, I don't know, we once we all dropped off, it kind of like, I don't know what happened to it,
the
to be
the
honest with you.
icebreaker in that context is a little bit different, because that's where you're trying to build a team, those team building exercises where you may have a large group of people that you want to become comfortable with speaking with each other, working with each other, getting to know each other. So at that point, those icebreakers do help people draw out and start talking about things, where you throw out random questions for people to talk about things and to find something they can be comfortable with, to have comfort within that group. This is the icebreaker in the context of, I'm just calling you up. I'm going to do like a quick cordial, hey, how you doing? But I really don't care. And I just want to know. I
Yeah.
just want to know, the reason why I called. So
My husband always says, fish on. My husband he'll be on a conversation, and if someone calls, he'll say, fish on, like get on. And I had to ask him one day, I was like, well, what does that mean? He's like, it's, like if you're fishing and you got a fish on the reel, you got to go, you got to reel it up, or a fish on the line. Like, it means I got to go. And he doesn't fish. So I was like, I don't know what that means.
I
But yeah,
like that, because you're going to lose them. Either you get
yeah,
right to it or you're going to lose me.
yep,
I like that. I'm going to start
yeah,
saying fish on, Chris. Every
fish
time you
No,
on.
call me, I'm like, fish on.
it's perfect, right? Because like once you're it's fish on, you kind of, don't worry about anything around you. You have to get that fish in right away.
Yeah, yeah.
I like that. I like that. That was good. That was good. So how's it good?
But yeah, I think those icebreakers, as far as in the term of like what Chris and I did, as far as I, I'm going to toot our own horns. We were incredibly influential to an entire large corporation.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
not
good.
going to diminish like how big of a deal that was, and it was. It's like people who are siloed, working in their little offices, and never got to, like Brad, like to what you're saying, Brad, we never get to, do we really care about these people? We got to start to even have the opportunity to know if we care about those people. It's one thing to be like, I know you and I choose not to care about you or to care
It's
about you.
it's not that you don't care about the people.
Right.
In the context of the conversation that you're having, you may not care about how they're doing. You just want an answer to your question. But I think the team building helps bring together and foster a good relationship to where you can work with each other and you realize and you understand each other. That's there's a big difference with not caring about a person versus not caring about how they're doing at that particular moment. It sounds kind of bad. Now you make me feel badly.
No, I think it's like you could care about a human because a human's a human.
Not all of us.
Those sound
It's
effects
done
kill
now.
me. You could care about a human because a human's a human, but you can't. The deeper care, the genuine care, can only truly come as you start to know them. So just sitting
Yes.
siloed in these offices and caring about them because they're humans is so different than going through the, gosh, what were we? I mean, at least monthly culture building sessions and seminars and workshops and
Yes.
icebreakers and outings. Like that's a totally different level of care that you can now have for these people.
But I will say though, it took a while, right? Because it wasn't like an overnight thing where like everyone now is like kumbaya, everything's working. It was kind of like steps that we had to take, and it's at the very beginning. It didn't sound like it was genuine, right? Like it's just too
Wooey.
cult like kind of thing,
Yeah.
weird. But it took a while as we got as we were we were consistent and we started sharing. We're much more vulnerable. We're sharing our stories, and it allowed everyone to feel as comfortable. And I think at that point in time, like, oh, they actually care about us, right? In turn, we actually did care. It just took a long time for them to care in return.
Is it caring or appreciated?
I
Oh, I
think
think
both.
both.
I mean, there's a difference between being cared, like someone cares about me, or they appreciate what I'm doing in the context of the workplace. I'm speaking. I'm not talking. It may be some other circle where you're doing some team building type things, but in the workplace, it's even in just conversations. It's sometimes people just want to be appreciated and understood, and through those exercises, you can get a better understanding of a person, and then they can also feel appreciated because you take the time to talk to them about what they're doing and try to understand them, so it
Hmm.
could lead to that appreciation feeling. This is all philosophical for the,
Well, I
you
think
know,
it's two parts, right? Because if
Mhm.
Steph, you remember in the very beginning, we try to voice out that we care, and in a long run, in the long run, we want to make sure that we showed gratitude at the same time. So we did end up doing things that showed gratitude towards them eventually, and I think they did what awards and stuff like that
Mhm.
at some point. But
yeah,
there's a
it's
lot of
good
involvement.
recognition.
I think time and materials were spent too. Uh,
Oh yeah,
so it
lots
wasn't
of
just
time.
something that we used, right? Like we want to give everybody the same content and materials.
Yeah, and it's
So in
go for it, Brad.
go. I'm just admiring the conversation. Continue your thought. I'll save my question.
I just was going to say it's culture. We talk about culture and it as a leadership thing, but what I know now so much deeper or can voice now that I didn't know then was so much of the intent of why we were doing what we were doing. Of course, it was that we could all get along and do well and enjoy the ride, right? But it's also a deeper thing that wasn't even verbalized, which was reinforcing the mission and the culture, or reinforcing the brand that we worked for, the company we worked for as brand. A huge part of that brand was empowerment. We very rarely use the word empowering, but what we were doing was empowering. And so
Hmm.
through this investment, Chris, myself, and the other people who in this company were rallying around this whole culture shift, we were reinforcing and embedding the brand values of that company without ever even saying that's what we were doing. That's That's the incredibly powerful thing about culture.
Collectively too, which was a big thing too, because like we all were on the same page, right? It wasn't
Mhm.
like Steph did her own thing, Chris did his own thing. Together it was like a single voice. It's like and I think everybody was involved too, all the leadership, like everybody had a part. And so from the messaging standpoint, for people that are never in the office, right, they're out on the road, they got to see that like as a leadership group, leading forward. And I think it got the message across.
We shifted our language
So
too.
you
Yes,
Go for
shifted,
it.
you spoke a new
word
language.
matters.
No, we did. We really did. We started. I,
No,
I kind of jokingly said, "Enjoy the ride" to Chris, and we giggled because him and I can understand. But we, I mean, it's a well-known author, John Gordon. John Gordon authored the several books, but it was the Energy Bus, and so we really, literally started talking about driving the bus, on the ride, take a seat, the wheels rolling along. We literally started changing our language across the whole company, inside the building, like Chris said, outside the building, people who are working in their mobile offices, people who are road warriors. We all started changing this language, not because it was a cult like or the cool thing to do, but because it was being reinforced by the leaders. It was being reinforced by the monthly, weekly, regular culture building that was being done. So yeah, there's even a language we speak element to it. Whoa, I
was
might
this
pop my
was this
mic.
was this process mentored by or proctored by somebody outside of the organization, or something that you put together and had a champion driving the direction of it?
You want to speak to that? I can speak. You're drinking, Steph. So it's
What are you
actually
drinking? Is that wine?
looks like wine.
It's my kind of wine. It's fruit punch.
Actually, Brad, that's a good question. I think we sat down and realized that there was a problem, and collectively realized like we need to do something about it, right? And
What was
and
identified as the problem?
ooh, you want to
there,
get that, Steph?
yeah, there was just a lot of siloing. First of all, there was at an organization, no matter what you do, there is typically, whether you're small or big, there's some sort of organization, or I mean, excuse me, operation. And our operations don't go A, stay in A, B, stay in B. It goes from A to B to C to D to E. And there was a lot of breaks from one station to the next station, one department to the next department, one person to the next person, because we weren't interconnected. We either A, didn't have the infrastructure to be connected in that way, and or B, didn't have that mutual connection and care and appreciation and gratitude for each other's roles so that they could come together and work seamlessly. So it wasn't like one thing that happened. It was a lot of balls dropped everywhere, and we just needed to come together and work as a team to get it done.
Okay. So then you talked about, you identified that there was an organizational problem that you were trying to solve. And then to the other point, was this something you worked on individually, or did you go outside of the organization to have somebody work with you to build the leadership team to know
Yeah.
how to do this type of team building, or, interdepartmental or interpersonal communication?
Well, we had a brilliant leader and president of the company, and she had invested all the time, even prior to this, she had invested in culture building and brand building and leadership building resources. And one of the authors that they had worked through before was John Gordon, but it was a different program, a different book. And so I think that it just happened to align that his newest, latest, greatest thing was the energy bus. And so myself, Chris, and then two others who were on the leadership board, basically all the heads of the departments. We were already in the leadership board, but then the four people broke off, and it was Chris, myself, and two others to lead the charge and work through this energy bus program. There's a book, there's videos, there's exercises. And then we just knew we needed to make it our own. And we just started creating extra extracurricular things that can build off from the energy bus teachings and workshops. And then once it was, because that of course ends at a certain point, then it was up to the four of us who we started calling ourselves the energy bus crew, or the, I don't even know what, we were the energy
I
bus
don't
folk.
remember.
I don't know. But then we just started researching other like tools and like systems. We found one that was actually super local to Seattle called Fish, and that was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I think I loved that one even more than the energy bus because of the local roots. Brad, have you been to Seattle? Like
No,
Seattle
I think
downtown?
I drove through it one point when I drove across the country. I took a ferry from Alaska to Seattle, I think, and then drove from
Yeah.
Seattle over to the East Coast. So the extent of my
It was a pass through.
interactions in Seattle was probably a second.
Got
So
it.
no,
Okay, so are you familiar with the
I could
fish
have just said
throwing?
no, but
No, I like the
no, I'm not
context.
familiar with the fish throwing.
No. Okay. So down at Pike Place Market in Seattle, there's a fish market, and they're very popular, and it's very known that if you purchase a fish, it's going to be thrown. And these are big fish. These aren't fish on a line fish. These are big fish, and they throw them
How do
from.
they get the big fish? Those go on lines too,
I
some of
know.
them.
As soon as I said it, I knew you were going to call me out. They throw them. They throw them to each other, right? And there's a whole culture and story and brand story around why that existed. And so the fish, it's an acronym, FISH, the fish teachings taught was the next lesson that we learned to teach through culture and leadership, about why they do that. How do you get from selling fish to throwing fish, and how do you make that so ingrained in your culture that you can't not talk about Seattle without talking about coffee and throwing fish and the Space
Yeah,
Needle?
just to jump into that fish. So it's fish culture exercise has been around for quite a while, right? So they talked about four simple things. One is being there, for being emotionally present. Whenever you have a conversation, we were talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Doing icebreakers, and do you really care? When you're talking to someone, you got to be there. Number two is play, right? You got to be creative and just enjoy what you do. Number three was make their day. So making sure that whoever you interact with, and they either they're going to need something or have or need some assistance, you're going to make their day. So it's pretty simple. And then the fourth was choose your attitude, and being able to, like, I'm coming in to work and I'm going to be positive about it, and I'm going to help somebody. So that was really the four principles of fish.
Did you just remember
No, that's
that, or
good.
did you look that up?
He's good at looking stuff up.
I had to look that up because I don't remember the
Oh,
last. I remember choose your attitude was a big component, and be there. I didn't remember the other two, so I had to look up the play and make
No,
their day.
attitude is an extremely important uh, part of, I think, everything. And you can make something good or bad based on how you look at it. I mean, there are some negative things, but if you give your best and you be positive, sometimes you can have a better day. It's being upset or having a poor attitude doesn't do anything, in my opinion, in most cases, besides hurt yourself and make your day miserable. So always trying to stay positive is the way to go, because then you just feel better. So what you have learned through this exercise and this organization as we're going there, how has it helped you today? And I noticed you're drinking out of that tumbler, that Viim tumbler.
yes.
Okay. What is it? Is it who makes it?
This
What type of tumbler is it?
this is
Is it a
Vim. Vim. This is just a generic Vim tumbler. It's not like a cool Yeti or anything, but it does the trick. I will
I was
tell you
wondering if you
that.
had a Yeti, because I was going to say you need to send me one because I'll drink my coffee out of it.
Oh, you don't want my Vim one?
I'll have a Vim one and I'll put it on the shelf
It
behind
works
me.
just as good as a Yeti, I promise.
Okay, send it over.
Okay.
So I want, before we have the next winging it with Steph, you can put it with my collection, because I drink coffee, and then I'll say I have one now. I drink coffee and I fill it with water later. This is
Yes.
actually. See.
Well, I should have probably put my fruit juice in this one. You wouldn't have known any better, and then I could have put water in this one.
Yeah, I don't even understand what you're doing over there. You're drinking. It's almost like you're having a chaser of fruit juice. So in the Vim cup, you have your vodka that nobody can notice, and you're chasing it with fruit
This,
juice. Is that what you're
this is
doing?
just cranberry. I'm just having cran vodka over here.
It's just kind of what I was wondering. But so we'll go back to the exercise that you were talking about. So where you in particular, Steph, with what you're doing now with the helping companies with the brand identity and the exercise that we were talking about in the previous episodes, how has that helped you, or how do you feel that that has helped you with what you're doing today? How has that helped you get to the point where, you know, with anything, how has it helped you? That's the
Yeah.
question.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a lot of the lessons that we were teaching, we were learning ourselves, right? I mean, that's a no-brainer. And so there's a lot of those things I look back on and remember for myself, just as a leader, as an owner of a company, working with my own team, working with clients. But as far as when it comes to the branding piece, it was such a beautiful, like I said earlier, I didn't have the words for it then, but now it's an internal activation of the brand, right? We have these core words, these core value points, and through the owners of that company, they believed so strongly in the words, the manifesto, the things that we were set out to do beyond just selling the product, that they invested in the whole company to get to deepen that. And so what I do with that now, and when I bring those memories back to me, it's okay, if you're going to tell me and sit here and go through these exercises about your company and your brand, and you're going to tell me that sustainability is, one of your most core important things, okay, so tell me, how does that bleed into your staff who work for you? How does that bleed into your building, your infrastructure, the way you ship, the way you sell? If sustainability is that important, I need to understand, and you need to be able to show and voice what that looks like, not just have a fancy word. You've heard me say this before, but it's not just words on a poster that goes in a hallway that no one walks by ever again, right? It's lived and breathed. I also say it is your brand, the many aspects of it, the language you speak, right? That I said that earlier about our, get on the bus kind of language, but that's actually a language that brands, when crafted appropriately, speak internally and externally. And they create their own. So it was just such a beautiful lesson in I guess brand activation. We think of brand activation as how businesses bring their brands to the public, but really internal brand activation, making that come to life, is just as important. So I guess I got to do the backwards, right? I got to experience, be a part of, and influence that. And now I get to pull from that on a regular basis so that my clients understand the work we do together doesn't just sit in a book and live on a bookshelf. It has to be like actively lived. It was a long answer, but
No,
I hope that
that's
made sense.
no, it's a good answer, but it is a key point you mentioned. A lot of exercises that companies go through or people go through, it's important to keep that current. I mean, if you're going through an
Mm-hmm.
exercise just for the emotions of going through the exercise and you never use it again, you just waste a lot of time. But if you can keep it on the surface to where you can continually enrich and grow, I think it's worthwhile to go to, because wasting time just for the one, I think everyone can get a sense that, oh, we're just going through this exercise for the exercise of it. But to be able to take what you learn and deploy it within the organization and see the reward of what your hard work is important. And that's everybody's hard work, because not just the leadership group, but also the individuals who participate in those exercises do put some work into it. And it does help build some strength within an organization, I believe.
Yeah, well, and Chris said it earlier, at the beginning, people were kind of a little like skeptical of the intention and the I'd hope that no one was skeptical of us actually, but maybe even us, like what's their agenda? I think we came in with such true passion and enthusiasm, and like we were total nerds about this whole goal that we had set forth for several years. We were total nerds about it. So I hope that no one was skeptical of us, but possibly. And I think it's because they'd never experienced it, and it was kind of hidden, it wasn't lived. And that's, to your point, Brad, if you're gonna, that's why it's not just about the program that you buy, the energy bush, the fish, the new book we're all reading together, right? It's not just about those siloed activities and moments in a company. It's about the foundational level of what we believe, and that throughout the turn of cultures, because cultures are going to change as the hiring team or the people who are in the company change, the leaders, the owners, the department heads, the staff, all of that changes. But if those core foundational pieces like sustainability or empowerment, I'm just making up words, I'm not necessarily referencing that company, but if those
How are you
things are
making
what,
up words?
just because
Those
my
are real
brain
words.
brain just I don't think sustainability was it? I don't know. I'm making up words. But whatever the foundation, whatever you truly believe, whether they're words or statements, those things, from the way that you answer your phone to the way somebody feels when they get their product in their hands and everything in between, that is part of your brand. And so if you aren't instilling that and living that the same way with the way your internal team functions, from the way they walk in the door, from the way they sit in their office, from the way they're greeted at the water cooler, from the way they get their paycheck, from what their paycheck looks like, says, has, from the Christmas party or not party, right? All of those things can, when done right, reinforce your brand and what you stand for. Therefore, bleed through your people in their roles as well. And that's what we were out for. That's what we were set out to do, was to deepen that brand so that as they're packing boxes, answering the front door, ringing out a client, doing payroll, every moment they felt these other important things. It wasn't about, oh, I'm signing a check for payroll. It's, man, I feel so good about the lives I'm changing by doing this job. So, yeah, it
So,
was
so
a
they feel
really
as
good
part of the
experience.
organization. They feel a sense of ownership
Yeah.
with what they're doing, so which helps with morale and helps also with quality of work, I believe. So it's important to people.
I
A
think
lot of times, I come into cases where individuals don't understand the impact of who somebody would interact with in your business, regardless of the position. Because even if you go to a store and there's somebody, a greeter, or somebody, if it's a place where you have a cashier or somebody who takes an order, somebody's whole image of your brand is who they're speaking with or who they're interacting with.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important that they feel a sense of pride or ownership in what they're doing. Because how
I
many
do
times
want
we say,
to.
I'm never going back to that place again because the service sucked.
Yep.
Right. And it's
Yeah,
just maybe one or two bad people that are having a bad day that ruined it now for somebody.
yeah. I want to point out something though, is the um w- all the people that were part of that journey with us, whether they were someone, a resource or someone working there, and not necessarily in a leadership role. It was more of helping them find their purpose. And so when they start doing their job, they found the connection, like, why am I doing this, right? What is the purpose of my task? Well, it was bigger than that, right? Like, I think one of the things that one of the examples we did was, putting a thank you card on each box. And so it created that sense of care and culture. So all the customers that are also getting that, right, as an example. Sorry about that. As an example, so I think that was important
Not only did
to
they get a
give
thank you
them a sense
card,
of purpose.
it was signed by the
Hmm.
person who packed the box. So a human was behind
Yes.
that purpose. And therefore, not only the
Yes.
human behind that purpose, that human's life and purpose and passion and story. And it goes right back to how we started this conversation about, now all of a sudden I care. If I'm going to call and say, hey, you missed, one of my products. I'm so mad at Eric, who also took the time to thank me. It's a little, that's not going to happen as much. It's going to be, hey, I happen to notice that a human packed my box and I'm still missing a product. Is there any chance I could get that shipped? It just changes that dynamic, of consumer to product to business to, that whole trifecta of a relationship. I didn't want to cut you off, Chris, but I just didn't know if you remembered like the
No, I
signatures, like that was such a big
yeah,
deal.
that was a big deal. And I think one of the examples we talked about during that exercise is the story about NASA, right? Like one of the presidents, I can't remember who it was, but came up to a janitor and it's like, what do you do here? And it's like, I put a man in the moon, even though he was a janitor at the NASA office, because he
That
had a purpose. And you know what I mean? So it's seeing that bigger picture. I think that's what you and I did, and others, of course, in the leadership group. That's what we're trying to drive, right? It's not just a paycheck. Obviously, yeah, a paycheck is great, but giving them a purpose of why we're doing things, making lives easier, and and even delivering products on time, right? Like that means that for people that gets this product, that relies on this product to do their business, it's their livelihood, and why it's important, why we're delivering these products on time, with care, because then they're making their customers happy because they're getting their products on time, and so they're making it's their livelihood.
yeah, it's a spiral effect for sure.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
That's good. That's interesting. Well, Steph, winging it with Steph, episode 1 live test. We'll have to do this again
This
in
is a
another
great
couple.
topic, by the way, because it's a
It is a
cultural
great
thing.
topic.
Yeah.
It's again, we have a talk about a lot of things on the podcast, and Steph, you and I had spoken about it, and Chris, we speak about it all the time. Is what's the intent? Just saying that business central, towards Microsoft Dynamics 365. There's another aspect to this realm of what we do, and it's the human interaction or the implementation interaction or the business interaction. You have the technical aspect or the use of an application, but how you implement it and what you do is another interesting point. So it's important for us to have some of these topics that we shoot off of,
Well, because
for everyone to get an understanding of, to help.
what you guys do is all managed by humans. It's all humans. No matter how much tech is there, you can't take away the human element. And so this depth of care, like this whole episode of care and gratitude and appreciation and culture, like one of your guys' episodes, I know you're trying to rap, Brad, you're like hating me right now, but one of your guys' episodes
No, I'm
recently
fine.
one of your episodes recently was about user permissions and about how you need to like stop, communicate with your client and say, I need to understand who are the users, what permissions do they need, and that there's that expectation that you should just know it because you're coming in and building it or fixing it or what have you. But like even slowing down and just stopping and having that human expectation conversation, like that's a cultural thing. That's built into
Mm-hmm.
like for a lot of people, what's one of their integrity is often like a core value. So integrity is like stopping, slowing down and doing what's right. And sometimes it's not snowballing through the process of building a software or using a tool or what have you haphazardly. It's about doing it right. So anyway, I just
Yep.
think that hopefully listeners find this really valuable, even though it's not very technical.
No, it's definitely valuable. There's a lot of value in this type of information. It is, I think it's becomes more valuable with the climate of the workforce today, where you have the remote employees, you have the hybrid employees, and you have the employees that are in the office. Having some way for the employees to feel as they're part of an organization while they're sitting in their office at home somewhere. There's quite a bit more emphasis on the importance of having these types of exercises. I've mentioned to Chris before, I know in some companies I've spoken with, they've had meetings where some of the online platforms allowed you to have breakout rooms, and it would force people to go into rooms to talk to people that they normally wouldn't talk to, instead of having large meetings where somebody overpowers it. But all these little things that can be done to help people feel like they're part of an organization and get to know people. And even firsthand, I've always been an advocate of video conferencing, and I've always pushed it everywhere I've gone. But even switching and seeing a transformation and going into places that don't use it, to getting them to start to do it or feel like they should do it, the interaction and the working relationship is far better than somebody who just sees like a blank screen and can't.
Yeah.
You know,
I-
say, there you go. You got me paused because I do my, I had to, Steph, you're supposed to coach me on those filler words.
I will. I want to make a quick comment to, we're talking about this culture building in organizations, and it just doesn't happen with one single person. It has to. What helped for us, with Steph and I, where we worked at, is that we got the buy-in from the owner of the company,
Yeah.
and the president, and and so that itself, it wouldn't happen, or it could have happened, but it wouldn't have been as effective if
Yes.
we didn't get the buy-in and the same push and support that we got from the leadership, the leadership of the company. So that was a big deal for me, right? It's like, man, they actually care. They want to put a lot of effort. So that was a big thing. Not just, of course, there's a lot of steps that you have to do to make it work, but that was a big icing in the cake from my
Yeah, and
perspective.
it all stems from the
That's
top.
perfect.
Always.
Oh, it does. It is important. It goes both ways from the bottom and the top, but you have to lead from the front, as they say. People will be inspired by you if they feel that you care. If they feel that you don't care, or they don't feel that you'll have the drive and the initiative to do it, then why should they?
Mm-hmm.
I've always had the notion of never ask someone to do something you wouldn't do or haven't done yourself, and that's an important message to give to people, that I'm not asking for anything more than I've already done or I would do tomorrow if I needed to. So with that, Steph, we'll have to schedule another Winging It with Steph, and we'll have a good topic plan to have many ideas for this, and we'll do it live. And hopefully by that time, I'll have that Viim tumbler sitting here
Okay,
on my desk to be able to drink some
I'll get them
juice.
out. We could
Do you have
cheers.
different colors?
No, I'm just my branded
Absolutely, we'll do a
colors.
virtual cheers.
Virtual
No,
cheers.
I like it. I like it.
Virtual
We'll absolutely do
cheers.
that.
Well, thank you guys.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Steph. Thank you for your time and doing this test of a live podcast. We did kind of wing it, and I appreciate it. I hope you both have a pleasant day. Ciao, ciao.
Take care.
See you guys.
Thank you, Chris, for your time for another episode of In the Dynamics Corner Chair. And thank you to our guests for participating.
Thank you, Brad, for your time. It is a wonderful episode of Dynamics Corner Chair. I would also like to thank our guests for joining us. Thank you for all of our listeners tuning in as well. You can find Brad at developerlife.com. That is DVLPRLIFE.com. And you can interact with them via Twitter, DVLPRLIFE. You can also find me at matalino.io, matalino.io. And my Twitter handle is matalino16. And you can see those links down below in the show notes. Again, thank you, everyone. Thank you, and take care.